Welcome to another edition of the Skyhook podcast. My name is James K, and with me, as always, is Chris Pennant. Chris, oh my God, I don't even know where to start with this, but we're coming off a couple days since the WNBA draft, and I don't know about you, but I'm still trying to tame my emotions. I mean, where's your head at right now with after such a crazy night?
I mean, it was my first WNBA draft, so if I hadn't had people around me who were as shocked, I think I would have been more surprised. But dude, it was incredible. I couldn't believe. I mean, we were pretty much reacting together in real time. But after the first two draft picks, everything just seemed like it was a toss-up, and nobody knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, what happened a few nights ago it's actually something that I'll never forget. I hate watching drafts. I do it just because I'm bored, because I'm a loser and only, I spend time watching pretty much all those drafts like the NFL, NBA. But usually after two or three picks, you kind of have an idea about what the rest of the draft order is going to look like. But like you said, picks 3 through 16, man, it was just something that you don't really see in other drafts. And it's but yeah, I'm curious. I want to hear your draft reactions just across the league before we get into the Sky. I feel like the Sky had a really successful night, but before we dive into that, I want to hear your thoughts. What was the most surprising pick through the night, when we were watching it on draft night? Because there's so many different directions you can go with that one.
Got to be Kaiser Gondrezick at number 4. We knew Ari McDonald, no matter what everybody's mock draft was saying, was going to go high, because the WNBA is getting to a point of popularity where people, I think, even the GMs are going to watch the NCAA tournament heavily. And if you have somebody who has a tournament like she did, their stock is going to go up immensely. And so having her at the latter half of the lottery never really made sense to me. I was hoping that everybody would kind of have their stuff set in stone, have their pick set in stone, so that the Sky would have a shot at her, because I think that they would have taken her. I honestly think if Ari was available at number 8, James Wade would have pulled the trigger and taken her. But having her go at number 3, especially to a team like Atlanta that's on the rise, has made some offseason acquisitions, both in the roster and in their ownership group, that was a big splash for them. So I think having Ari available that early made sense from a team standpoint and from a marketing standpoint. But Kaiser Gondrezick at number 4, we talked in our last pod about how as Ari stock went up in the tournament, I think Kaiser's had fallen after that performance in their first round game. It's just out of character. And I think some of the season, shortened season as it was, didn't do her any favors on the draft boards either. And so that was a really stinky final data point for her to have. And so for Indiana to take her that high, it didn't start the dominoes falling, but it sure was, I think, the first big head scratcher for those of us who were in some kind of the know.
I was shocked by that pick, just because across the board, a lot of people didn't project her going that high. I think the highest I saw her go was in the second round, quite honestly. Actually, wow. maybe the 11th pick, actually. I thought on Winsidr.com, I thought I did see someone draft her that high. At the same time, man, I don't know what Indiana's doing. I love Kaiser Gondrezick. If you heard her last pod, she was someone that I was really high on, was hoping that, again, I thought maybe she could even fall to the Sky with the 16th pick. Just the way that she's able to move the ball up the floor. She can play on and off the ball. And she's someone that I think could really be a real contributor in the WNBA. But yeah, for Indiana, though, how much backcourt depth they have now. I mean, honestly, I've been really curious about what Indiana's plans are and what they think their window is, whether that's trying to compete right now, which, well, it's not going to happen. I don't see them really making the playoffs this year, if I'm being quite honest.
Wow.
Okay. Unless a lot of things go right, the roster construction leaves me a little bit puzzled. And but that said, I mean, I do like Kaiser Gondrzak. If she's able to get minutes, maybe she can play next to Julie Alleman, because again, she does have experience playing the two. In her second year in college, she was forced to play off the ball to make it work with their roster. So, I guess in that sense, I mean, again, if they loved Kaiser Gondrzak to the point where they felt like they need to take her at number 4, a lot of media members don't have pre-draft interviews with prospects. And I think the disparity in the WNBA and MNBA coverage is still kind of wide because of that, because that accessibility isn't quite there. Or maybe it's not even accessibility. It's more that we need the media to care more about events like this and reach out to players. But I digress. With that said, again, just completely shocked by Kaiser going that high. Who else were you surprised by? Like, was there anyone that you thought should have been taken in the first round? Like the Dana Evans slander with these WNBA teams, not going out and reaching to get her when I thought she was one of the best guards in the draft. She falls all the way to 13 to Dallas, which kudos to them, man. That's a great value pick for Dallas with the 13th pick. But was there anyone else?
Might have had the best draft.
They low key, man, that they might have had the best draft. I love, again, just to go off your point too with Atlanta, just that backcourt is going to be so fun. Courtney Williams, Kennedy Carter, Ari McDonald. I mean, I forget who tweeted it, but someone's like, you got to give that core a podcast and just let them rile off an hour,
Oh man.
Yeah, that, I mean, like,
I didn't even think about that.
Dude, so much swag in that backcourt. But who else did you?
It's called drip. Remember, Asia told Kathy it's called drip. We call it drip now. Now we're old heads. We're in the previous generation, so swag still makes sense.
Writes down it's now drip in notes. Okay,
it's called drip now.
Oh man, I actually feel so old now. But who else did you see? Like, is there anyone else that you saw taken outside of the top 12 that you thought deserved to be there?
Well, we don't know what happened with Arella Garantes for her to go so far down into the second round, because she was odds on one of the top picks that just was sitting there waiting. And I don't want to comment on what her state of mind must have been. I think in the pre-draft interview, she said it was terrifying. Or the post-draft, I think she said it was just terrifying sitting there and waiting. But there's got to be something that we don't know, because there's no reason that I can see. They had a tough loss to I think it was Wright State. But otherwise, I have no idea why she went so far down the board. I want to know what comes out and when, because Los Angeles, I mean, that's a big move for the Sparks, getting a great player like that after losing CP. And they got Stephanie Watts in the first round. I mean, we want to see what that is. We want to see what kind of player she is, because we didn't hear much from North Carolina. But I don't understand. I don't understand why Garantes went so far down the board.
Yeah, that was definitely the biggest shocker, just because you saw so many guards go before her where you're like, okay, this is the team that's going to draft her. No, this is going to be the team that's going to draft her. You just saw her fall. Like, the only thing, you know what, I don't even like to speculate, but my only thought was like, did something come up with the physical or something? Like, I really couldn't understand, just because she's someone that kind of feels like she's already ready to go out and play immediately. She's someone that she can push the ball up the floor in transition. She is lights out from 3. Like, I don't know, man. I that was one that I really couldn't believe. I thought that Los Angeles was going to take her with the 7th pick, because I was like, oh, maybe that's why they moved up. Maybe they had someone in mind that or had some intel where they can jump in front of the Sky and get her at that 7th spot. And honestly, I thought the 8th pick, I'm like, oh, did James Wade just pull a fast one on the rest of the league? I thought that was like who he was going to draft. But yeah, man, that was super shocking. Again, Dana Evans going all the way to the second round to New York, or to Dallas was just something I was shocked by. And also Kiana Williams, just after, I know she struggled a little bit in the last two games of the NCAA tournament. Jesus. I mean, her going to the Storm, I think that's a really solid fit for her, just being able to go in right away, learn from Sue Bird and Jordan Canada, and be able to, potentially find the spot on the roster there. I mean, I think that she's an exceptional talent too. She's so quick. Her first step is unbelievable. And she can operate the pick and roll. I mean, she would be a really good fit. And she's going to be a good fit with Seattle if she's able to crack the roster and everything. But it was just so disorienting watching Arella fall the way that she did. But yeah, I mean, was there anyone that landed with a certain team where you're like, oh no, that's the steal of the draft, or this person is going to fit in so well with X team?
Just any pick in the draft?
Yeah, I mean,
that's cheating, right? Because Charlie and Awak went 1 and 2. Those are the ones who are going to fit the best. I mean, like you gave me an alley-oop. That's not fair.
Oh, hey, how about this? Anyone from 7 and down? How about that?
Okay, yeah, make it more difficult. That's good. That's what we need.
I'm trying to help you out, Chris.
I don't want to. It's a Sky podcast. So after I got over my initial shock about Shyla Heal, because she was on the post-draft interview list, but I think with all the boards that were left, I don't know how many people expected her to go. But having watched her tape in the WNBL, I definitely think she'll stick. I don't think that this is a pick with the same high ceiling, low floor as Katie Lou, because she's an experienced pro for such a young person still. She has a very good handle. She's an exciting player. She's going to have a lot of ooh, ah type moments in Wintrust this year. And with the proper coaching and the right amount of play time, I think she could be a good successor to Courtney Vandersloot. Mm-hmm. I think the one thing that worries me is just overall size and height. She's 5'6". I believe she's either 5'6" or 5'8". So big guards might give her trouble. And then the smaller Jordan Canada ball hawking type guards might give her some trouble, because she's got that exciting handle, but she turns the ball over a lot. She turned it over 41 times in 16 games for the WNBL this year. But I think that one's really going to fit. Renaya Davis, too, for Minnesota. Minnesota, man.
Dude,
Minnesota, man. Oh, my God. Get somebody check Cheryl Reeves' desk for all of the Lucky Rabbit's feet and horseshoes and other stuff that she's got in there, because Minnesota getting Renaya Davis is absolute theft. A theft.
She was the one that I was going to say for this pick. I mean, man, you can get a 6'2" combo guard, or maybe not really a combo guard, but she's a combo forward,
Looks like a traditional, in basketball, that's like a traditional wing forward. 6'2" and mobile.
Yeah,
and
man.
On a team that already controls the boards.
They're going to be able to, yeah. No, go for it.
You got Sylvia, you got Nafisa Collier, you have my favorite and most underrated player in the league, Damiris Dantas. I think, I don't know how much she's going to add, but I think they still have Bridget Carlton. But adding a player like that, a 6'2" forward who really goes to the glass, it just makes them so much more formidable inside the key.
And one thing that Cheryl Reeves said on her podcast that came out a couple days ago as well is that she thinks that Renaya Davis's 3-point percentage can go up as well. Like, she's just said, like, there's something about college players where you're focused on, like, more than just what's happening on the court. You're a college student, and you can't just focus on being in the gym for 2 hours a day working on your 3-point shot. She used Nafisa Collier as an example, saying that, Nafisa coming out of college didn't have the greatest 3-point shot, but then she was able to come in with the Lynx and hone that skill set of hers. And now she can, you can't leave her open in the perimeter. So I think that's what they view Renaya Davis as right now, is someone who can actually improve as a shooter, maybe become a little bit more efficient there, and really, I think she can contribute right away too.
Yeah.
And she's a fierce competitor. I really think that she's going to be, when we look back at this draft, I think we might we might scratch our head with a couple of these picks above Renaya Davis, because I think that she can be she's just going to be a contributor in this league moving forward. But hey, let's talk about the Sky, because I mean, I guess this is a Chicago Sky podcast.
I guess.
I just feel like James Wade had one hell of a draft, man. I mean, let's just do a quick overview of this. I mean, the Sky selected Shyla Heal.
I'm excited. I want to hear what you have to say about this. Yeah, man.
Oh man, I'm so excited, especially, again, I want to provide some context first. So Shyla Heal was drafted with the 8th overall pick, and then this guy just watched Natasha Mack fall into their laps at 16. And I mean, again, I just think James Wade, like, he is one of the winners of this draft night, honestly, because the value that he was able to get with Natasha Mack, who was a first round, I don't know, like, her talent level fits with the profile of a first round pick. And then you get Shyla Heal with someone that he clearly believes in, and has been looking at for a long time. And I know that could be coach speak, but at the same time, I've never seen James Wade so happy at a press conference before after just talking about Shyla Heal, man.
Tell me what that was like, because folks, I apologize. We didn't get full coverage. I was ill. Don't get sick on draft night. If you are a media member, especially if it's your first draft night as an accredited media member, don't get sick. Just don't get sick. So James, I want to know what you saw from Coach Wade in the post game, or in the post draft. I mean.
So Chris, I'll give you an example, because I thought it was one of the best moments of the night. So someone asked him if Shyla could come in and step in right away. She's, again, 19 years old. She's 5'6", still growing, which is, I think, a hilarious element of this.
That is crazy.
But James Wade said, well, she's going to have to, because she's going to be guarding Sloot in practice every day. I'm like, oh, yes, I love that, honestly. I'll just give you one of my quick thoughts about this, because I thought there were some people who thought it was a reach to get Heal with the number 8 overall pick. And I mean, again, I'm just going to reference Cheryl Reeve on her podcast. She said that she didn't have Heal higher than Dana Evans, and that, I mean, that on her draft board, she just wasn't as high on Shyla, which isn't an insult to her by any means. But I've also never subscribed to the idea that you shouldn't draft a player you are in love with because you can't justify the position in which they're drafted in. You know what I mean? Like, if James Wade didn't think Heal would drop to the 16th overall pick, which I think there were people who thought that she could slip to that pick, or that position in the draft, I think you have to go ahead and make the pick you're comfortable with. I mean, let's put it in perspective too. There were 5 guards that were drafted after Shyla. So, someone could have seen what Wade saw in Shyla Heal in the pre-draft process, that if you really are bought into a player and you're like, you know what, that's the person that can give me the 10 minutes a night I'm looking for in order to back up Sloot, who just he can't run her into the ground. If the Sky want to make a championship run, then go ahead and grab Shyla Heal at number 8. There are things, and again, another moment from the post-draft press conference that Wade, I thought it was a very valuable quote that Wade said, is like, look, you guys are good at what you do, but you don't get to do all these interviews with the players. You don't get to learn the person. And, you wouldn't just look at someone's resume if you were a boss and be like, okay, I'm just going to look at what's on paper, and then I'm going to select it just based on, only maybe not the fullest perspective of who the person actually is, So he saw something in Shyla Heal. She said that, she had been talking with Chicago before the draft as well. And they do seem like they're a really good match for each other, because you have the best mentor in Courtney Vandersloot, one of the greatest facilitators in basketball history, to learn from. And now you have James Wade, who, again, he shows that how committed he is to players. And there's something about having your coach believe in you like that and maybe, other people might have thought that they reached with you at the number 8 pick, but James Wade saying, screw that. I think that you can help us win a championship right away. And for someone who's been playing basketball since she was professional basketball since she was 14 years old, I think that Shyla's coming into a situation where she can really thrive. But I'm sorry that went on for so long, but Chris, what were your thoughts on the Shyla Heal pick?
I was surprised. She wasn't in my radar, so I was surprised, especially with the guards who were on the board, and me just knowing and thinking about the fact that the Sky needed, I think, perimeter defense was something that they wanted. Granted, Diamond's coming back healthy, and Kalia Copper's improving, and those are two of the best defenders that they've got on the team on the wing. Gabby's still on the team, and she can defend two to three positions. And honestly, you got to save Courtney for the offensive end. But from what I saw in EuroLeague play, I think her defense was pretty sound in a league that is pretty heavy with good guard play.
Yeah,
there's a lot of good guards in EuroLeague. So I thought, just from the bit that I saw, that she had been doing well. She's chasing around screens, she's staying tight on the ball handler in the pick and roll. But she looked good. She looked good defensively. But it's always been something that I've seen where in W play, she and Allie did not have good advanced defensive metrics. So I figured that they would go for, not a 3 and D. I hate that phrase necessarily, not a 3 and D player, but somebody who could add some more perimeter defense and maybe a little bit of shooting. But to go for a player like Heal, who has, scoring has been her calling card, I was surprised. Now, that was before I saw her tape and said what I had to say earlier in our cast. But I still was very surprised given who was available.
Definitely. And again, Arella was still on the board, which I just thought,
right,
okay, maybe she's ready to go right now. And she fits the mold of a James Wade type player as well. But what I like about Heal, again, just the being able to play professional basketball for like 5 years before coming into a league that's super competitive. I would worry about the size, her being 5'6", if she had played in college, if she's someone that, you're not playing against some of the greatest competitors in the world. I do think the EuroLeague is ahead of the not the WNBA, but like in terms of the NCAA, like I think that she's in a perfect position, just having, again, all that experience playing competitive basketball where the stakes are so high. And I think that's probably something that James Wade valued coming out of this draft. I think another
experience aspect.
Yeah. Again, I know she's only 19 years old and everything, but if you're put through the ringer for like 4 years like that, again, playing professional basketball overseas, that means some of that has to translate to the W. I think that that's something that, you're forced, like, you're also someone that grew up with a parent who was an athlete too. You can't forget about Shane Heal too, who, who has experience with that as well. So I think that it's going to be,
we'll tell that story. We got to tell that story at the end.
Absolutely. I'll let you tell that at the end for sure.
Okay.
But hey, we can't overlook though what the Sky got with the 16th pick, because I think that it makes the Heal pick even better, being able to get Natasha Mack. Natasha Mack was actually someone I loved heading into the draft, but I didn't talk about it on our podcast because I thought there was like no way that she would be available in the second round. But this guy kind of took advantage of some of these questionable calls by some other teams. And I'll completely take the L on that if Natasha Mack flames out. But I would bet that she's going to be a great fit for this team. Just looking back at the tape, man, she's 6'4", but she has a 6'11" wingspan. She's someone that can, like, she brings a defensive edge in the paint that the Sky have just needed for so long. And again, just looking back, going through the draft process too, one of the things I was super impressed by was whenever she was double teamed, that she showed maturity, being able to pass out of the post. And for a team like the Sky, she's probably not going to get double teamed in the WNBA just because of how much star talent is on this Chicago team, obviously. But
yeah,
for Mac to be able to have some vision in the post and being able to find some of these players that are knocked down from deep, I can't say enough how much I love this for her. Again, if she was going to drop to the second round, and when you were a second round draft pick like that, you have to find a situation where you can really compete for a roster spot. And I just could not believe that this guy were able to draft someone that not only fits, what they need, like their team profile and like what they need from, honestly, I think that they might need Natasha Mack right away if she's, I don't even know how this is going to work with the rotation and how she's going to find minutes, but she is someone that, again, it's a block party anytime she comes in the game. And she's someone that fits. The Sky need her in the paint, but I think that Mac also is going to get a great opportunity to show that she is a first round level player, and that should have been drafted there. And she's just coming into a great situation too. So I just love the Natasha Mack pick, and I think that this guy really, their grade is higher because they were able to find the value in the draft like this. You know what I mean?
I'm not the opposite end of the spectrum on Natasha Mack, but there's just so many people in the front court that it's difficult for me to see where she's going to get time to develop. Now, granted, she is the defensive player of the year in one of the better conferences in college basketball, and she was putting up points. She was one of the focal points, if not the focal point, of Oklahoma State's offensive game plan. And she's got nice touch in the paint, nice touch in the mid-range. And I didn't even get a chance to see what you talked about, being able to pass out of double teams, which I always love in a big who has a good back to the basket game. You have to be able to pass out of double teams. My worry is what she gave as her calling card is her defense. And there were points in that Wake Forest game in the first round of the tournament that she looked a bit tired coming back up the court. So I wonder about, just how her stamina is going to be as you get into a faster paced game, pro game, even if you're only playing a few minutes a night. And then being able to switch on defense. What else was being able to switch on defense and also defending bigs in the post. She got eaten up by Charlie Collier and Alyssa Smith in the games that they played them. And in the Wake Forest game, Christina Mora, who was playing, I think power forward for Wake Forest, had 18 points on 14 shots. So I think that she is a good player with a pedigree, but I don't know where she's going to find time. And I also don't know if her skill set's going to translate.
So one of the things that stuck out to me, I saw someone retweet one of their stories from before about how Sylvia Fowles credits her 2017 MVP to James Wade when he was an assistant coach on the Minnesota Lynx, and that she wouldn't have gotten to the point where she was like defensively if, Wade wasn't there to coach her up. That's kind of one of the reasons why I really like this pick, is just that you're coming into a situation with the defensive mind of James Wade that's going to be able to help her develop as a defensive player and maybe turn into a more mature basketball player. Again, when we're talking about a second round pick too, we're talking about let's look at the ceiling of this player and can we get the most out of her and see if she is a piece that we can use moving forward. And I know this, one of the things that I hate to keep bringing it up on the podcast, but the Sky only have 3 players signed through 2022. I think with some of these, with these 2 picks, Chicago has a little bit more breathing room as they try to figure out who they're going to prioritize re-signing over the next 2 off seasons. They can breathe a little bit more, potentially getting, again, I think someone who is a first round talent in Natasha Mack, maybe they can breathe a little bit or sleep at night a little bit easier, knowing that, okay, even if Steph Dolson does find a better situation, let's just say, I'm just throwing out a random backcourt player that's going to be a free agent for this team. If someone like her finds a better deal and situation, the next off season, that maybe you can afford to do that by being able to pay Natasha Mack on the rookie scale, but also knowing that she can be a contributor if she's like, again, put in the right situation. So I think that the Sky kind of have a sneaky young core moving forward. If, let's just say, like, God forbid that they end up going through like a rebuild project or retooling where they kind of build around Diamond. And again, I don't even want to go down this path where like their star players leaving free agency, but in terms of the breathing room that I was just talking about, I do think there's like a certain value in having someone like Natasha Mack, who, I mean, she's a versatile front court player that they can utilize, not just, I mean, again, I don't know how they're going to use her this upcoming season, but I think James Wade kind of danced around that a little bit, during the post-draft press conference. But, just having that core of Shyla, Diamond, Natasha Mack, Ruthie Hebert, I mean, that gives you I think that we can start evaluating this team, not just on what's going to happen next year and the year after that, but you can start thinking about this 5-year period for the Sky where you can see them being successful, with any scenario that happens over the next 2 years. Does that, like, if that makes sense?
It does. I thought about that when I was writing up my piece for the next. If Natasha was a piece for the future, like obviously Shyla is, given what she's coming in with and what need she fills. I mean, one, she's a backup point guard, which the Sky need and have needed. Two, she's young enough that they could potentially get her locked in for the long term. And so that is definitely a help you win now and help you win in the future type pick. Natasha is the same way, I think, because of that same consideration about getting players and for the future and staying under the salary cap, because that's the real big consideration for next year and beyond, is who can the Sky afford to keep? Kalia Copper is going to command max or close to a max salary. And so it sucks, but the Sky might not be able to afford to keep her. But it sucks in that, one, she's a great player, two, she's a fan favorite, and three, this is where she's made her mark. It was early, but she didn't get a chance to shine in Washington before that trade for Steph and Ka to send Elena out that way. But it was her first year, but she didn't get a chance to shine, and I don't know if Washington knew that this is what she was going to turn into. So for her to have blossomed in Chicago, it sucks to think that they might not be able to hold on to her when the time comes. But they might not be able to. So that's definitely a pick to solidify the backcourt for the future. Natasha, I just don't know if she'll be able to stick, depending on who they want to keep, because they have options. You can sign Z for the long term. You can hopefully, if you want to put money on it, Candace Parker obviously going to command the max or the super max. But if you really want to, I think you can sign Candace Parker for long term. So it depends on where the odd position out is.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, a pick like this just gives you flexibility, just to harp on the point that you just made. Just being able to just have a piece that you can move down the line to make room for someone like Candace Parker to get a max contract. And let's not forget Diamond DeShields. I'm going to be super surprised if she doesn't get a max deal after this year. I know she's had her bumps in the road with health, but that's it. Like, she's someone that I think, what was it? I thought that Madeline Kenny of the Sun-Times reported that she turned down a deal that was like slightly below the max this past offseason, which makes sense. I mean, she is going to
bet on yourself.
Yeah, and she has all the reason to. I expect big things from her. So if the Sky have to pay up, and they just do, they're going to have to do some Simone Biles level cap gymnastics to really, but the things like they're really going to have to try to think critically about how they're going to make all of this work if they want to retain their core. And Vanderquigs is also someone they have to keep in mind, but with Natasha Mack, I just think you do have a little bit more flexibility and being able to not completely abandon the idea of like what the future could look like if some of these key pieces aren't around. I think that we kind of have to talk about this too, Chris, and we can just touch on it lightly here. But I mean, draft night did start off hot and in Skytown with Annie Constable of the Sun Times. Also, congratulations on your new beat, Andy. Annie, yeah, woo! Amazing.
It sucks that we won't have battling, but they've worked closely together for a while now, and so nobody's losing anything. Yeah. Nobody's losing anything with Annie coming on. And great photographer, by the way, too.
Yeah, man, and also shout out to Madeline for taking over some of these news beats for the Sun Times. It's incredibly hard going from sports to news, and she's an incredibly talented reporter. And hopefully we'll see her at Sky Games this season. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But Annie Constable of the Sun Times, I mean, she did report that the Sky are waiting, several trade options that include Gabby Williams. And, again, I just want to put this up at the top of this conversation. Nothing is finalized. Nothing is finalized. There are a lot of things that could happen from now until training camp. And, I don't want, I mean, we're talking about another human being's situation that can alter their life. We don't I'm just trying to think that it might be a little hasty to just talk in depth about this without anything actually happening. But Chris, this does have ramifications if something does happen between now and training camp. So the news didn't necessarily shock me too much given what we talked about with the cap situation. But what were your thoughts when you saw Annie's report about Gabby Williams' situation in Chicago, moving forward and might potentially be limited soon?
Well, firstly, I screamed out loud.
Yeah.
A scream of despair. And then I looked the situation in the face, and it's hard to gauge because we've seen Gabby improve overseas the last 2 years. So I think that she might be in the same or similar situation as Kalia Copper, where the Sky feel that people are going to, throw money at her when her contract's up, and it might not be something that they can match. I believe, check me on this if I'm wrong, I don't have her hoop stats up, but I believe she's a restricted free agent next year, so they can at least match any offer sheet. But I think the way that she's played overseas, and she played much better last year. She started off the season very well. I think that teams might be looking at to add a player like her on because she's a combo wing. She's 5'11". She's got good size and strength, and the way that James Wade has utilized her, other teams can say, "Hey, here's a player that we can have defend one of the other team's better small forwards or even the power forwards in a pinch if we're running a small lineup." And she's improved her three-point shooting, and she's always good on defense. So, all of these things are why I like Gabby so much, and I've been waiting for her to reach that max potential that this guy have wanted since she came out of UConn. And that was an Amber Stocks draft pick, her and Diamond in that same draft.
That's a good point.
So it's difficult, but I think the considerations are, and obviously we talked a little bit about players who have Olympic, not concerns, responsibilities this coming year. So Gabby's on the French national team. So she's going to have to miss a part of the season for training camp. And Stu's going to have to miss part of the season for Team Spain. And then Steph is, I think, the 3-on-3, and Diamond is in the Olympic pool as well. So they're going to have players who are going to be out for a significant part of the early season. But I think the Gabby trade question is more of a long-term fit. I wonder sometimes because it seems like where she's been put as that backup point guard is not a role she really relishes, and she didn't play that much with Sopron in this offseason. She played a lot of off the ball, and I just wonder if she's been kind of put in this position that she doesn't really feel like she fits in, or she doesn't like playing, and if that's a consideration on her side. But that's just a thought. I looked to see if I'd seen something. I saw something in the past where she felt like she was in a better position. She said in something that she felt like she was in a better position not playing that lead guard role in the second unit. But I wasn't able to verify. So strike that from the record.
Well, man, I just don't think we've seen the best of Gabby Williams in the WNBA just yet.
Not at all, not yet.
She's done everything this team has asked from her, and I think it's tough because she's proven that she can be the backup point guard for this team. And she's shown flashes of that. It seems like that was going to be something that was going to be a part of her game moving forward. But again, like even with this in mind, I just think, what James Wade said at the press conference after the draft, he told every prospect he spoke with that they were going to be tasked with backing up Courtney Vandersloot. So one of the things, again, that makes Gabby so valuable is that she can play 1 through 4. And one of the reasons why she's been so valuable to this team, again, when they haven't had that true backup one, with Cindy Colson battling COVID last year, and Chloe Jackson not quite working out with the Sky, Jamira Faulkner battling injuries. Gabby has really stepped up for this team. But again, like now, Shyla Heal is coming in knowing that she's going to back up Sloot. James Wade would not have said that publicly if he didn't believe it. And he told every prospect that they would be backing up Sloot this season. That was going to be their role and that they're going to be comfortable with that. So by default, Gabby was just going to see less minutes. There's just no other way around that. And again, I do think there's this factor of her playing in Team France, as Madeline Kenny pointed out on Twitter. Her being in a contract year makes it a little bit more difficult. And again, I just think that Gabby, we haven't seen the best of her yet. And if the Sky, and I know other teams in the league probably feel the same way. So, if the Sky can maybe add another draft pick out of this, just knowing that they need to give Shyla space and time to grow and not having to worry about, other competition maybe getting in the way of that. I'm just trying to think about this from all angles. Like, I get it why this guy might want to try to move on from Gabby, but at the same time, like, nothing is finalized here. And Gabby is such an important voice for this team, both on and off the floor. She really felt like the spokesman of the team last year when we were going through everything last year, just like the beginning of a global pandemic, the protests against police brutality. And, as this guy battled through some tough times with injuries and kind of having an up and down season last year. So, she's such an important voice for this team. And again, she's sacrificed so much already in her young WNBA career, both with Amber Stocks and with James Wade so far. I can't speak highly enough of her, but just given, I just wasn't all that surprised by this, just given the circumstances for both sides, if that makes sense. Again, I'm not going to be surprised if Gabby's on the roster on opening night too. So she's that.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No. What were you going to say?
I don't know if they get a trade done. If they're looking into a trade still, I don't know if they get a trade done before opening night. We still got the players in the training camp who are on the roster to possibly get a spot, like Alexis Prince and Brittany Boyd and Jessica January. So one of those players could make the team to fill in a role where they can. And if this doesn't make sense, let me know. To fill in a role where they would only need to utilize Gabby in one certain way, rather than having her, take one of the accessories out of her Swiss Army knife, so to speak. I don't know if they would. I don't know if they would trade her before training camp, because this is the year.
Yeah.
This is the year for them. This is the Candace Parker big splash. Everybody's talking about it. The Sky aren't flying under the radar at all anymore. I think last year they got a pass because Diamond was hurt, and especially after Z got hurt, everybody's like, well, this is, the Sky aren't necessarily going to make that second round leap when they just have they're so obviously without pieces they need. But this is the year, and Gabby is a part of that plan for the year. What she brings to the table. If things change as the season goes out or goes on, or if they find a mix that works while she's away and things change, then that's for the future to decide. But Gabby is a part of this team's plans to win the 2021 WNBA Finals.
I agree. I don't like the idea of them trading Gabby. I just think you can't be too careful. I mean, someone who's just proven that she can be durable and be reliable for that team. Like, you know what you're getting from Gabby Williams. Um, I think, her floor game to game is higher than a lot of other players, and you can't trade that reliability in terms of just steadiness. I know, again, Gabby, I think can improve on the offensive end, but I think there are a lot of reasons why she hasn't shown her potential on that end of the floor. And she's, again, we've seen, like, I would bet on her first part of the season last year than I would on the back end, because of like what happened with that team, like just kind of falling apart injury wise. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to trade Gabby Williams, you better get the value for that.
Say it.
Because
No, say it. You can say you better get a damn good return.
Yeah, man, seriously, because she can help this team win a championship, and defensively, to lose a player like that would be, I know you get Candace Parker into the mix now, and maybe we do see more of Natasha Mack than you and I are both expecting. Maybe someone like she's able to step up. Maybe Z is able to. I think that you can bet on Z to stay healthy. I'm hoping that's going to be the case this season. You never want to wish anything upon anyone. I think that if she's back too, maybe you're betting on that, like those three to really step up on the defensive end. But you can't just give away Gabby Williams. She's just too valuable on and off the court. But Chris, is there anything else that you want to discuss about in terms of draft day topics, or just the Sky moving forward? I mean, I was just so thrilled with what they did on draft night, and this season can't start soon enough, because I need to see what this team looks like on a basketball court already. I just can't stop visualizing it. It needs to just happen already.
First of all, the Shyla Heal story that involves her dad, Shane, and Charles Barkley. That was fun. I know not everybody is a Charles Barkley fan, and for good reason, but he is still one of my favorites, knowing that he is far from perfect. Chuck, on Inside the NBA, as they were going over, and this is one, let's talk about how on Inside the NBA, they were going over the WNBA draft results. Things are changing. Things are still changing for the better. But they said that, and Charles was like, Heal, that young lady, Heal. Is she? And Ernie was like, Shane Heal, the daughter of Shane. And Charles, as he's trying to congratulate Shane on his daughter getting drafted, got interrupted like 3 times. But he made mention of the fact that in a 96 training camp, or a scrimmage basically before the Olympics, the Team USA played Team Australia at what was then the Delta Center in Utah. And Shane Heal went off for the Boomers, had I think 6 of 10 from 3. And he was getting some of those dejected oohs and ahs from the crowd, like, yo, don't let him touch the ball. And at a certain point, I think on his 5th, he was shooting, and Charles just ran through and gave him a shoulder to the gut. And so they were yelling at each other going back up the court. And if anybody has seen Australian sports, I want you to remember the term sledging. It's a uniquely Australian thing that is particular to cricket, where Australian bowlers, basically pitchers, as they go down the pitch, if somebody takes a pitch or hooks, y'all need to watch more cricket, by the way. They will basically yell at the opposing batsman, and they'll say stuff like, oh, that's the one you wanted to take. Why'd you want to take that pitch? It's like, yo, if you hook it on me again, I'm going to throw the ball right in, you're going to get a bouncer right to the chest, stuff like that. And so Australian players are notorious for talking that shit. And so Shane, who had all rights to do this, yelled at Charles and put a hand in his chest as they came back up the court. And so Charles and Shane had their run-in. And after that, he said, he's like, you're lucky you had a daughter. I was going to kill your ass. And Shane tweets, he's like, Charles, you're lucky I didn't swing. It's going to be good. So Shyla is going to have, I wonder, is Shyla going to have that same iron in the spine like we've seen from players like Sophie Cunningham, not afraid to get into the mix when things happen? Because the Sky, they have those players, right? But their most heart and soul emotion on the sleeve player is in Atlanta now. So who's going to be that person who lets it out when they get into it with Las Vegas or hopefully with Minnesota? You know, who's going to be that player? And if Shyla Heal gets in that moment, that's going to endear her to the team and the fan base, and I think will show a lot to whether she is ready to step in. Because you know, you don't have to be ready your first year, but I think that story in itself says a lot about her and her upbringing. And it's going to say it won't be a surprise if she's ready to go toe to toe with some Diana Taurasi. Oh, imagine, bro.
I was literally going to say, man, like, I just want Diana to be like, I'll see you in the lobby, and Shyla just be like, you bet your ass I'll see you in the lobby. Yeah. I'm 19, like, we don't have to wait. I don't care. Yeah, man.
We don't have to wait till the lobby. We're not in Florida no more.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Oh my God. I would love to see that, honestly. I mean, you got to kind of earn your respect. And that's, I mean, with limited minutes, you're going to have to like play the mental game a little bit. You know what I mean? So, and honestly, that stuff matters. Having parents that have been professional athletes, like helping you navigate the media, having, you know, not letting your lows get too low and not letting your highs get too high. I mean, having someone to mentor you that you trust is so important. And I love that story from inside the NBA. That was so funny. Yeah, let's get more. How about get inside the WNBA going? All right. I mean, I would love to see some show. Yeah, man, that would be great. I mean, I wasn't all too thrilled by the coverage on draft night. You know, I mean, there's always room for improvement. We're seeing it already. Hey, shout out to Kathy Engelbert for juggling 3 basketballs, by the way.
That was so dope.
Cool. That was so awesome.
So
I was like, I see you, Kamish. I see you. That was
here.
Yeah, that was so cool. But Chris, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Oh man, there was one. Well, I mean, come out with the merchandise. And big ups to Christina. Gosh, it's We Got Game. It's at We Got Game 2. Who
Jasmine
pointed
Baker?
out?
No.
It was either Jasmine Baker or Christina Williams.
Yeah.
Who broke the story about the Dallas Wings Rebel jerseys and how the program that they were based off of, the WASP program that had women training to be pilots, was racially biased. And so Dallas pulled those jerseys, which is great because one, we need to stop lionizing the military without doing homework, and to it all. And two, I mean, I think you're seeing more now as you're going to, people need to understand this. This is the last thing I'm going to say. People need to understand is the WNBA gains in popularity. Hardcore fans are going to get kind of pushed to the margins at the cost of increased visibility and marketing. So you're going to see a lot of stuff like this. And the fans and players who have been there and shown what the W is, which is a league that will not shy away from activism, they're going to have to keep an eye out for things like this. So it was either, I believe it was Jasmine. I think it was Jasmine Baker who broke this story. Big ups to her for getting this done, because I hate seeing these uniforms that are just like, we're going to throw some camo on a shirt and donate to a veteran's cause of some sort, because it's a lot of performance. That's the last thing I got to say.
Yeah, man, no, for sure. Also, the league's got to get this right with the whole Elena Deladon jersey thing. Dick's sold the jersey with the hyphen. Come on. We're talking about hyphenless Elena Deladon here, okay? Let's get the MVP's name right. Please. Hire me as a copywriter if you need it. No, besides that, I don't even want to end on a
hire
negative
James.
note. Yeah.
WNBA hire James. Get him that salary.
I mean, I do want to just say congratulations to everyone that was drafted. I mean, it's such that even if you don't carry on with your WNBA career from here on in, even if you're the last pick in the 3rd round, I mean, it's such an accomplishment to even be considered to be invited to training camp. Like, congratulations to everyone involved. More so, congratulations to Shyla and Natasha. We can't wait to cover you this season. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a really fun year. And Yeah, I'm sure we'll be back on the pod later this week too. But great draft night. It was so hype. Glad to see that more people contributing and being a part, like, engaging as audience members. So glad to see that the WNBA stock continues to rise. And yeah, man, it's going to make for a great season. So I'm looking forward to hopping on the pod again soon.
Me too, man. I'll see you then. Woo!
Yes, sir.
We're getting into it, baby. We're getting into it.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Skyhook podcast. If you want to contact us, you can always do so by emailing our mailbag, which is the skyhookmailbag@gmail.com. One more time, that is the skyhookmailbag@gmail.com. And you can always follow us on Twitter as well. Our handle is @skyhookin, which is SKYHOOKIN. Thanks so much for listening to this episode, and look out for more in our feed. You can always subscribe to our podcast channel. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Yes, we're on Spotify as well, so please subscribe and give us a rating, only if it's positive. No, do what you gotta do, but we really appreciate the support. And yeah, thanks for listening to this show, and until next time.